Picture this. It's November 22nd, 1718. Dawn breaks over Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina. A British naval officer named Lieutenant Robert Maynard stands on the deck of his sloop, staring at the severed head of the most feared man to ever sail the Atlantic. The head dangles from his bowsprit, swaying with each wave. Black smoke-like hair whips in the wind. Even in death, those eyes seem to burn with hellfire. The man who owned that head had been stabbed 25 times, shot 5 times, and still, he kept fighting, kept swinging his cutlass, kept roaring like a demon until his body finally gave out and collapsed onto the blood-soaked deck. His name was Edward Teach, but the world knew him as Blackbeard. And here's what makes this story truly terrifying. Blackbeard only terrorized the seas for 2 years. Just 2 years. In that impossibly short time, he became the most legendary pirate in history, not through the number of ships he captured or the treasure he stole, but through something far more powerful, pure, calculated psychological warfare. If you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more stories like this. And drop a comment to tell me where you're listening from. I love knowing that we're exploring these dark secrets of history together, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity. Now, let's return to the story. We don't know much about Edward Teach's early life, and perhaps that's fitting. Monsters don't have childhoods in legends. They simply appear, fully formed and terrifying. What we do know is that he was likely born in Bristol, England, around 1680. At some point, this man looked at the civilized world, with its rigid hierarchies, its poverty, its rules designed to keep men like him crushed under the boot of aristocracy, and decided he wanted no part of it. The sea offered something different. Freedom, power, the ability to take what you wanted from those who had everything. By 1716, Teach is working as a privateer under Captain Benjamin Hornigold, operating out of the pirate haven of Nassau in the Bahamas. Nassau at this time is a lawless republic, a place where civilized society has collapsed and pirates rule themselves. It's chaotic, violent, and absolutely intoxicating for someone like Teach. But privateering, legalized piracy with a government commission, isn't enough for him. When Britain offers pardons to all pirates in 1717 and Hornigold accepts, returning to civilized life, Teach makes a different choice. He doesn't want redemption. He doesn't want to crawl back to a world that never wanted him in the first place. He wants to be free. And more than that, he wants to be feared. Here's where Edward Teach dies and Blackbeard is born. And this transformation isn't gradual. It's calculated, deliberate, theatrical. Teach understands something that separates him from every other pirate sailing these waters. Reputation is everything. If people are terrified of you before you even board their ship, they'll surrender without a fight. No casualties, no damage to the cargo, no risk to your own crew, just pure, paralyzing fear doing all the work. So he creates a persona that will haunt sailors' dreams for centuries. First, the beard. He grows it long and wild, then braids it into separate strands, weaving the braids with coloured ribbons like some twisted decoration. But that's not enough. He wants people to think they're seeing the devil himself. So he takes slow-burning fuses, the kind used to light cannons, and he ties them into his beard and under his hat. When he goes into battle, he lights these fuses. They burn slowly, smouldering for hours, creating a halo of smoke around his head, the embers glowing red like hellfire against the darkness of his beard. Imagine you're a merchant sailor in 1717. You're hauling cargo across the Atlantic, probably underpaid, definitely overworked, just trying to survive. Your ship has just been approached by a vessel flying a black flag. You've heard the stories. Everyone has heard the stories about what pirates do to captured crews, and then you see him. Through the smoke and noise of battle, this figure appears on the deck of the attacking ship. His face is obscured by smoke pouring from his head. His beard seems to writhe with flame. He's carrying 6 loaded pistols. He looks like something that crawled out of the Bible's descriptions of hell, and he's coming for you. You surrender. Of course you surrender. Who wouldn't? But the costume is only part of it. Blackbeard cultivates stories about himself with the same care a modern celebrity might manage their image. He needs people to believe he's not just dangerous, he's insane, unpredictable, capable of anything. One famous story tells of him shooting one of his own crew members, Israel Hands, in the knee under the table during a card game. No warning, no provocation, just a sudden gunshot that shatters Hands' kneecap and leaves him crippled for life. When asked why he did it, Blackbeard supposedly says, "If I didn't shoot one of you now and then, you'd forget who I am." Another tale describes him challenging his crew to see who can endure hell the longest. He takes several men below deck into the hold, seals all the hatches and vents, and lights pots of sulphur and brimstone. The hold fills with toxic, choking fumes. Men are gasping, suffocating, pounding on the hatches to be let out. But Blackbeard sits there in the poisonous smoke, breathing it in, refusing to give in. He outlasts them all. When they finally emerge, his crew is vomiting and half dead, but he's barely affected, as if he's immune to suffering itself, as if he really is something demonic. Are these stories true? Maybe, maybe not. Some historians think Israel Hands was shot accidentally. Others think the sulphur story is complete fiction. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter. The stories spread from ship to ship, port to port, tavern to tavern. And now Blackbeard isn't just dangerous, he's supernatural. He's something other than human, something that can't be killed or hurt or reasoned with, and that makes him untouchable. In November 1717, Blackbeard captures a French slave ship called La Concorde off the coast of St. Vincent. The ship is a beautiful beast, a 200-ton frigate built for speed and cargo capacity. Most pirates would just loot it and sink it or sell it. Blackbeard sees something else. He sees potential. He takes La Concorde as his flagship and renames it Queen Anne's Revenge. A bitter, ironic tribute to the British Queen who died 3 years earlier. Then he begins transforming it into something terrifying. He adds more cannons, ripping out cargo space to make room for firepower. By the time he's finished, the Queen Anne's Revenge is carrying 40 guns, making it one of the most heavily armed pirate ships in the entire Caribbean. For comparison, most merchant vessels carry 10 guns at most. Even naval warships usually carry fewer than 30. But it's not just about firepower. Blackbeard understands something that most pirates don't. There's strength in numbers, but there's more strength in coordination. He doesn't just command one ship. He forms a small fleet, a squadron of vessels working together. At his peak, he's commanding 4 ships simultaneously, with over 300 men under his authority. This isn't piracy as usual. This is organised naval warfare. With his fleet, Blackbeard begins terrorising the Atlantic coast and the Caribbean throughout 1717 and 1718. And this is where his genius truly shows itself. He doesn't just rob ships, he creates an atmosphere of existential dread. Word spreads from port to port, carried by traumatised sailors and terrified merchants. Blackbeard is hunting these waters. Blackbeard is coming. Ships change their routes. Merchants delay voyages. Insurance rates skyrocket. The mere possibility of encountering him disrupts trade across the entire region. Ships surrender at the sight of his flag because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate, and most of the time Blackbeard doesn't even have to fire a shot. But Blackbeard's most audacious act comes in May 1718, when he does something that shouldn't be possible, something that demonstrates just how much power one man with a fearsome reputation can wield. He blockades Charleston, South Carolina. Think about the audacity of this for a moment. Charleston is one of the most important ports in the American colonies. It's heavily defended, connected to British military power, protected by fortifications and armed vessels. Ships from across the Atlantic come here to trade. It's essential to colonial commerce. It's a symbol of British imperial power in the New World, and Blackbeard just blockades it for an entire week. He positions his fleet at the mouth of Charleston Harbour and starts capturing every ship that tries to enter or leave, one after another. Within days, he's taken 8 vessels, including a ship carrying Samuel Wragg, a prominent member of the colony's council, along with his 4-year-old son. Wragg and the other passengers are taken prisoner. The city watches in horror as one of their most important citizens is held hostage by a pirate. Then Blackbeard makes his demand. But here's where it gets interesting. He doesn't ask for gold. He doesn't demand thousands of pounds sterling or chests full of jewels. He asks for medicine. Specifically, he demands a chest of medical supplies worth about £300, including mercury compounds used to treat syphilis and other diseases ravaging his crew. The message he sends to the governor is chilling in its casual arrogance. Send me the medicine chest within 2 days, or I'll send you the heads of all my prisoners and burn every captured ship in sight of your harbour. The city has no choice. They gather the medical supplies, they send them out to Blackbeard's fleet, and Blackbeard, true to his word, releases the hostages, but not before stripping them of every valuable they carry and sending them back to shore humiliated, a reminder of who actually holds power here. Let that sink in. A pirate, one man with a handful of ships, blockades one of Britain's most important colonial ports, holds prominent citizens hostage, makes demands, and the city simply gives him what he wants. The British Empire, the most powerful military and economic force on earth, is powerless before Edward Teach, because everyone is too terrified to call his bluff. Because they're not certain it's a bluff, that's the real genius of it. But why does Blackbeard's psychological warfare work so well? What makes him more terrifying than other pirates who are arguably more violent, more cruel, more willing to torture and kill? It's because Blackbeard understands theatre. He understands that humans are storytelling creatures, and the stories we tell about monsters are often more frightening than the monsters themselves. Every action he takes is designed to feed the legend, to make himself seem more dangerous, more unpredictable, more inhuman. Take his flag, for example. Most pirates use some variation of the skull and crossbones. Simple, direct. Blackbeard's flag is different. It shows a skeleton, not a skull, but a full skeleton, holding an hourglass in one hand and a spear pointing at a bleeding heart in the other. The symbolism is layered and deliberate. The hourglass means your time is running out. The spear and bleeding heart mean death is not just coming. It's coming for you specifically, aimed at your life. And the skeleton? That's what you're about to become. When sailors see this flag, they're not just seeing a warning, they're seeing their own future. Then there are the weapons. Blackbeard doesn't carry 1 or 2 pistols like most pirates. He carries 6, all loaded, all primed, all arranged across his chest on silk slings like some kind of walking arsenal. Why 6? Because reloading a flintlock pistol takes time. In close combat, once you fire, the pistol becomes a club. But if you have 6 pistols, you can shoot 6 men before anyone can reach you. The psychological impact is enormous. When Blackbeard boards your ship, you know he can kill half a dozen people before he even draws his sword. And his cutlass? Oh, his cutlass is another calculated choice. It's massive, much larger than the standard naval sword. It's designed to cleave through bone and muscle, to cause devastating wounds that terrify anyone watching. When Blackbeard swings that blade, people die messily, and everyone around them sees what happens to those who resist. But here's the truly dark aspect of Blackbeard's method. Most of the time, he doesn't have to use any of this. The weapons, the flag, the burning beard, the stories of madness and cruelty, they all work together to create such overwhelming terror that ships surrender immediately. No violence necessary, no risk to his crew, no damage to the valuable cargo he's stealing. Violence is common. Terror is an art form. And Blackbeard is a master artist. By mid-1718, Blackbeard is at the height of his power. He commands a fleet. His name alone can clear merchant vessels from the shipping lanes. Governors fear him. The Royal Navy is hunting him but can't find him. He's essentially untouchable. And then he does something unexpected. He accepts the king's pardon. Governor Charles Eden of North Carolina is offering pardons to all pirates willing to give up their criminal ways. It's part of a larger British strategy. Cheaper to forgive pirates than to hunt them all down and hang them. Many former pirates accept, including Blackbeard's old captain, Benjamin Hornigold. In June 1718, Blackbeard sails into Bath, North Carolina, and formally surrenders to Governor Eden, receiving a full pardon for all his crimes. He even marries a local girl, Mary Ormond, supposedly his 14th wife, though that number is almost certainly exaggerated for effect. He purchases a house. He becomes, at least on paper, a respectable member of colonial society. Is he really going straight? Is the devil reforming? Absolutely not. Blackbeard is playing a longer, more sophisticated game. He uses his pardon as a legal shield while continuing to operate. He develops a cosy relationship with Governor Eden, almost certainly paying him bribes from his plunder. He uses North Carolina's waters as a safe harbour, a place where he can repair ships, rest his crew, and plan his next moves without fear of arrest. He's engaging in what we might call legalised piracy, attacking ships that technically belong to enemy nations like Spain, making his raids look legal, even though everyone knows what's really happening. It's brilliant. He gets the protection of a government pardon while continuing to rob and terrorize, and there's nothing anyone can do about it because he's technically operating within the law. But this arrangement can't last forever, because while Blackbeard has fooled Governor Eden of North Carolina, or perhaps paid him enough to look the other way, he hasn't fooled everyone. Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia is watching, and Spotswood decides that Blackbeard needs to die. Spotswood has a problem. He can't legally send military forces into North Carolina to arrest or kill Blackbeard. That would be invading a neighbouring colony, creating a political nightmare that could end Spotswood's career. But he also can't let Blackbeard continue operating. The pirate is disrupting trade, making Virginia's waters dangerous, and more importantly, making Spotswood look weak. So Spotswood does something clever and arguably illegal. He organises a secret military expedition. He hires Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy and gives him an off-the-books mission. Hunt down Blackbeard. Kill him. But do it quietly, and do it in a way that won't cause diplomatic problems with North Carolina. Maynard takes 2 small sloops, the HMS Ranger and the HMS Jane, and handpicks his crew. These aren't regular sailors. These are experienced fighters, men who've seen combat and won't panic when facing the most feared pirate in the Atlantic. He strips the sloops of most of their cannons to make them lighter and faster in shallow water. This is going to be a close-quarters fight, not a long-range naval battle. Intelligence reports suggest Blackbeard is anchored at Ocracoke Inlet on the North Carolina coast with a reduced crew. He's been partying with other pirates, including Charles Vane. Most of his fleet is scattered. He's vulnerable. This is the moment. This is the trap. Maynard's ships approach Ocracoke Inlet at dawn on November 22nd, 1718. It's a clear morning, the water is calm, and Blackbeard sees them coming. Blackbeard knows exactly what this is. 2 military sloops approaching his position. No merchant would come this close. This is an assassination attempt, and he has a choice. Run or fight. Edward Teach chooses to fight. His ship, the Adventure. He's not using Queen Anne's Revenge anymore. She ran aground months ago and had to be abandoned. Weighs anchor and moves to intercept Maynard's vessels. Blackbeard has perhaps 25 men with him. Maynard has about 60 across both ships. The numbers aren't in Blackbeard's favour, but when have numbers ever mattered when you're facing the devil himself? The Adventure opens fire first. The broadside is devastating. It kills several of Maynard's men instantly and damages both sloops. But Maynard keeps coming. The water here is shallow, full of sandbars and treacherous channels. Both of Maynard's ships run aground briefly, giving Blackbeard a chance to fire another broadside. More men die. The deck of the Jane is slick with blood. But Maynard doesn't retreat. He can't retreat. This is a fight to the death, and both men know it. The ships manoeuvre in the shallow water, trying to get into position. Blackbeard fires again. The Ranger is hit badly and starts taking on water, forced to withdraw from the fight. Now it's just the Jane and the Adventure, circling each other like sharks. Maynard makes a decision. He orders most of his men below deck out of sight. From Blackbeard's position, the Jane suddenly looks severely undermanned. There are only a handful of sailors visible on deck, and they look terrified. It appears that Blackbeard's broadsides have done their work. The ship is crippled. Victory is at hand. Blackbeard sees this and makes the same decision he's made hundreds of times before. He's going to board the enemy vessel and finish this in hand-to-hand combat. It's what he does best. It's what has always worked for him. Terror, close quarters, overwhelming force. Let them see his burning beard and his 6 pistols and that massive cutlass, and they'll break. They always break. His crew throws grappling hooks across the gap between ships. The Adventure and the Jane lock together. Blackbeard is the first over the rail, roaring like a demon, smoke curling from his beard, pistols in both hands. This is the moment when Lieutenant Maynard springs his trap. The men hidden below deck surge up through the hatches like a violent tide. Suddenly Blackbeard isn't facing a handful of terrified sailors. He's facing 30 armed, trained fighters. He's walked into an ambush, but Edward Teach doesn't retreat. He doesn't surrender. Even now, outnumbered and surrounded, he fights. Blackbeard fires his pistols. 2 men drop. He draws 2 more pistols from his chest and fires again. 2 more men fall. The deck becomes chaos, smoke and screaming and the clash of steel. Blackbeard is bleeding from multiple wounds now. A shot has hit him in the side, another has grazed his skull, but he keeps fighting, reloading, firing, swinging his cutlass with devastating force. He fights his way toward Maynard himself. The pirate and the naval officer face to face at last. They recognise each other for what they are. Two men who understand that only one is leaving this deck alive. They fire at each other simultaneously. Both shots hit. Maynard takes a bullet that tears through his coat but somehow misses his body, inches from death. Blackbeard takes another hit but doesn't slow down. They draw their swords. Maynard's sword is standard military issue, lighter, designed for thrusting and quick strikes. Blackbeard's cutlass is massive, designed to cleave through bone and armour. They clash once, twice, blades ringing against each other. On the third strike, the sheer force of Blackbeard's swing breaks Maynard's sword. The blade snaps, leaving Maynard holding a useless hilt. This should be the end. Blackbeard raises his cutlass for the killing blow. Maynard is defenceless, staring death in the face. But before Blackbeard can bring the blade down, one of Maynard's crew, a Scottish Highlander, swings his broadsword and catches Blackbeard across the throat. The cut is deep, nearly a decapitation. Blood sprays across the deck. Blackbeard staggers, but he doesn't fall. His throat is open to the spine, and he's still trying to cock one of his pistols for another shot. His hands are shaking. Blood is pouring down his chest, but he won't surrender, won't stop, won't die. Maynard's crew swarms him then. Another sword thrust catches him in the stomach. Another cuts across his back. A pistol is pressed against his ribs and fired. Then another. The accounts vary on the exact number, but when they finally examine his body, they count 5 gunshot wounds and more than 20 cuts from swords and knives. 5 bullets, 20 sword wounds, his throat cut nearly through, and he fought for several minutes before finally collapsing. Even in death, Blackbeard refuses to surrender the myth. Legend says that after his head was cut off and thrown into the water, his headless body swam 3 times around the ship before finally sinking. It's almost certainly not true, but the fact that people believed it, that people wanted to believe it, tells you everything about the power of the legend he created. Maynard takes Blackbeard's head and suspends it from the bowsprit of his ship, letting it hang there as they sail back to Virginia. A grisly trophy, proof that the demon can be killed. When they reach port, the head is placed on a pike at the entrance to the Hampton River, a warning to other pirates. This is what happens when you challenge the crown. The most feared pirate in the Atlantic is dead. The demon of the Caribbean has been slain. His reign lasted less than 2 years. But has he really been defeated? Here's what makes Blackbeard different from every other pirate of the Golden Age, from every other criminal and outlaw in history. He only operated for about 2 years, from 1716 to 1718. 2 years. Most pirates had longer careers. Charles Vane terrorized shipping for nearly a decade. Henry Morgan was active for over 20 years. But Blackbeard's name is more famous than any of them. Why? Because Blackbeard understood something fundamental about human nature. We remember fear longer than we remember facts. We tell stories about the things that terrify us. We pass those stories down, embellishing them, adding details, transforming the person into a myth, and the myth into something immortal. After his death, the legends multiply exponentially. Stories spread about cursed treasure hidden along the Carolina coast, buried in secret locations that only Blackbeard knew. Tales of his ghost haunting Ocracoke Inlet, searching for his severed head, terrorizing fishermen and sailors who venture too close to where he died. Accounts of his skull being turned into a drinking cup rimmed with silver, used in taverns to toast the pirate's memory. Some say the cup had magical properties, that whoever drank from it would gain some of Blackbeard's courage and ferocity. None of this is probably true. All of it becomes part of the legend, and the legend becomes more powerful than the man ever was. Think about what he actually accomplished in those 2 short years. He never lost a major battle until his final one. He blockaded a major colonial city and made them pay ransom without firing a shot. He operated openly under a government pardon while continuing to raid ships. He became so feared that vessels surrendered at the sight of his flag, and when he finally died, it took a coordinated military operation, 2 ships, 60 men, and a so elaborate trap to bring him down. and even then he nearly won. But here's the really dark part, the part that makes Blackbeard's legacy truly chilling. He showed every future outlaw, criminal and dictator that image matters more than reality, that a well-crafted reputation can be more powerful than an army, that people will believe whatever story you tell them if you commit to it completely enough. That terror is a tool, and if you're willing to wield it without hesitation, you can make the world bend to your will. Every modern criminal who cultivates a fearsome reputation, every terrorist organization that uses propaganda to seem unstoppable, every authoritarian who rules through fear rather than force, they're all using Blackbeard's playbook, whether they know it or not. He wrote the manual on psychological warfare 300 years ago, and we're still reading it. The pirate who wove lit fuses into his beard didn't just steal cargo and sink ships. He stole something far more valuable. He stole control of his own narrative. He made himself into exactly what he wanted to be, a demon, a monster, a legend. And in doing so, he achieved a kind of immortality that few humans ever reach. 300 years after his death, we're still talking about Edward Teach, still fascinated by him, still trying to separate the man from the myth, knowing we probably never will. His skull allegedly still exists, kept in various private collections, passing through history as a macabre relic. But the real Blackbeard, the man who lit fuses in his beard and terrorized an ocean, is gone. What remains is exactly what he intended. The legend, the fear, the story that refuses to die.